All right, guys, so we are back at Grant Eder's home, literally inside his house. You know, the guy with 500 aquariums inside and countless outside, and turned his pool into a pond and does all of these things. However, today I want to talk about what are in these tanks and how do you maintain it all. So Grant, why don't you take us to a rack or something like one of your favorite racks in the house, and we'll kind of focus there, because it seems as though everything's kind of running the same.
I always say this is like the nicest rack that I know of in the American scene of shrimp keeping.
So this is all shrimp.
Yeah.
And
every
shrimp
single
is
one
your
is Caridina shrimp in this room.
Caridina.
So the Neocaridinas are outside.
Okay.
I do have some of them inside, but the Caridinas, they need stable temperature, so we keep our house AC'd at 70 to 72 degrees all year round, and that keeps the temperatures for the shrimp at a perfect stable temp, that there's no real issue of bacterial infection or fungal issues or anything like that. It's kind of like the whole hospital keeps their temperatures down to stop anything from spreading. So the shrimp will actually breed more if it's warmer, but they're a lot more susceptible to disease and other things. So this temperature I find is like right in the middle of the road for a long lifespan and healthy shrimp.
70, 72?
Yes.
Okay, so that's step one to basically keeping, can we apply that to the Neos as well?
Neos, it really doesn't matter. I find that the Neocaridina have enough hardness in the water and the pH is stable. It's pretty much impossible to kill them without putting poison in the water.
So 70, 72 for these guys. So basically, if we learn to keep these, we can easily keep the Neocardinians, which are like cherries.
Yeah, so cherries, you don't really have to worry about the water. These guys you do. So you have RO water to start off with, and then you use GH only minerals or general hardness minerals.
Right.
No carbonate hardness in the water, because the KH will actually raise the pH or stabilize it. Where we have the aqua soil with the RO water in every single one of the tanks to lower the pH. So you want about 6 pH for these guys. Anything above 6.4, you're going to compromise baby survival rate and growth rate and stuff like that. So definitely want fresh aqua soil, RO water, and some GH only minerals. And that's pretty much the only difference from the Neocaridina. Everything else is the same. The tank, the feeding regimen, the water change schedule, the plants, the lights, the filters. So it's a little more money up front to get Caridina because of the soil and the RO system.
But you're using, this is like a humate soil, like a volcanic soil?
Yeah, we mainly use Brightwell throughout the house, but I've got ADA, SL Aqua.
And this grain size seems to be in every single one.
So I find that the smaller the size, a little bit better, because the baby shrimp will go through the little nooks and crannies, and with the 5mm size pellets, I've seen some of the shrimp get like an inch down in the substrate. And if that's happening on the front of the glass, and there's a collapse or it gets trapped in there, it gets stuck in there, that's a baby survival rate going down. So if it's happening in the front of the glass, chances are it's happening throughout the whole tank. So I find that this compact, smaller substrate is ideal.
And what about lighting? Is lighting going to be a thing? Should they be kept, is it better to keep them in darkness, or?
So absolutely, light is essential if you want good looking shrimp. The light is going to help with the pigments. Their pigment is kind of like a sunscreen. So the more light that they're actually getting, the more intense light, the higher quality color they're going to be. That's why the Neos look so good when we keep them out in the Florida sun. So you want as bright a light as you could possibly get without really creating any algae issues. So I find that these cheap full spectrum LED lights that you get off of eBay or Amazon, they work great.
And you're growing all these plants with these?
Yep. No CO2,
That's
no
a 6
fertilizer.
foot light?
Yes, sir.
How much is that?
So I actually try to buy them for Shelby's new rack, and I can't find them. They have like brands that I don't want to use that are super expensive and not really worth it to buy a 6 foot light. So they used to only be about $1 an inch, and then they went up to $2 an inch, and now I just can't get them.
Supply and demand, yeah.
Hopefully they come back in stock after the holiday rush, and maybe we'll get them again.
You do run sponge filters on every tank. Why is that? Why did you choose sponge filters?
They are the most bang for your buck filtration that I can find for shrimp. They have the small sponge systems that none of the babies can go up into the intakes or anything like that on a canister filter or hang on the back. You'd have to use mesh, and then not only that, but efficiency. I have this entire rack running off of just one Alita air pump, where if they were all on motorized pumps, then that electricity bill would be super high. Initial cost would be super high to get started. You could have them all on one system with a individual pump and a sump and something like that. But these shrimp, they're so small with most of the overflow systems, they either get clogged and then you have overflow issues, or the baby shrimp are going to be sucked in. So I find sponge filters, $2 sponge filters, and a closed loop air system with a nice blower air pump, and you really are cranking as much filtration as you need for the shrimp.
And you run it all through PVC pipe in the back, and you tapped into it with those pretty classic air valves.
Yeah, it's the easiest, cheapest, and most efficient thing that I could find.
Where's the air pump? I don't hear it.
Up here, all the way up top in the right-hand corner. You actually hear the bubbles more than you hear the air pump.
Oh, yeah. What brand is that?
Alita. The whole house runs on Alitas. I have nothing against Gemco, but that's just what all the shrimp nerds were using.
How do you spell
Alita.
that? Oh,
A-L-I-T-A.
Okay. Are they cheap or are they just really good?
So they're about the same price as the Gemco ones. It was just that's what all the fancy shrimp breeders were using. So I kind of continued and picked up with what they have. But I'm not a fan of their customer service, where I had an issue and I contacted Gemco before setting up my pump outside, and they walked me through my problem, and I never even had to buy a new pump. So the Gemco customer service might be worth looking into their linear air pumps.
And for maintenance, what are you doing?
So every 2 weeks I do about 40 to 50% water change. We do a lot of traveling. We just had a baby, so if I don't get to them every 3 weeks or so, that's not a big issue. I do have faith in the shrimp that I could go like 2 months without having to do anything, and they would be just fine. One of the adult shrimps might get eaten, but for every shrimp that get eaten, I'd probably get 20 to 30 babies at least. So they're really low maintenance. I wouldn't have 500 aquariums in the house if they weren't easy and for the lazy mind, you know?
And then feeding. Are you feeding every day or what?
Every other day. I do have some finny tigers that weren't really breeding for me up until last year, and I started feeding them a small amount every single day. But to do that for all the aquariums isn't really necessary, so I find feeding every other day is a little bit better and easier. So sometimes we might break up the house, feed half the house one day and half the house the next day.
And how long are your lights on for?
So we don't really use the other lights in our house, so we'll wake up, turn on the racks, and when we go to sleep we'll turn them off. So
a lot could be like 12, 16 hours?
Yeah, but our son's rack doesn't work on any of the Wi-Fi, so it's really hard to turn those off. So his are all on timers that come on at 8 o'clock in the morning when he's supposed to get up and get ready to go to school.
And the light,
and they
I
go
did
off
notice
at
that.
8, so 12 hours.
You use these to light the house.
Yep.
That is super cool, and it's green.
And it's efficient, so we don't really have to spend. Our energy bill is under $450 a month.
Damn. So you're not only breeding shrimp by the tens of thousands of how many species of shrimp do you think you have? Or I'm sorry, different varieties.
Over 160.
160 varieties. So are you like the biggest in like the United States?
Yeah.
Or, and then you also sell the plants.
Yeah, so we grow out a lot of the plants out back like you saw in the last video.
Yeah.
Mainly in the house, I just do moss. With the shrimp, I don't like to touch the substrate. So moss is like the perfect thing. We do some boosts, some Java ferns, some Bobitis, because they're epiphytes and they don't really need to be in the substrate. But the moss really is the ultimate shrimp plant.
Yeah, I love having moss with shrimp. Oh man, what's your favorite shrimp?
My favorite shrimp?
Yeah.
So the greens, I have some greens back in Layla's room. Green is my favorite color, and they didn't have green caridina at the time.
They say green is the favorite color of a genius too. Did you know that?
No, I didn't. So we've got some hooker moss.
Hooker moss.
Yeah. And then you see the green one right there on the side. I didn't name it. It's hookerus or something like that is the Latin name, but everybody just calls it hooker. Of course, all the nice ones are in the back. I can feed them and have them come out, and you can get some B-roll footage if you'd like.
That's okay. I think I filmed them earlier too. Yeah, that's crazy. I like the white ones and the black ones because I can see them easily. Or like this type, but this one's awesome. What is this?
So that's just a coal tank. So that's just a tie bee down in front. It's nothing special. It's just a cross from a tiger and a bee shrimp. And
see what I'm saying? I would want culls naturally. That's
Yeah.
crazy that I like the cheapest thing for once.
But a lot of people like the black and the blues.
Yeah.
So these are a line that I created from
damn.
my own, where I've got the back line going down. So it looks very similar to a panda stripe, but it has the skunk back line. They call them skunks.
That's nuts. And are you intentionally creating it, or do you just like, well,
Yeah.
I wonder what happens if I put this kind and this kind?
Both. So I have, if I get a new type of shrimp, I cross it with as many different types of shrimp as I can. However, if I see a new shrimp that just came out on the scene, I kind of have an idea of what I need to do to create it. So when I first saw these, nobody really had them available in the United States, and I was like, I can make these from scratch. So I have my 2 tanks of black and blues here. I've got a tank of red and white in Jaden's room.
When it's water change day, do you do them every day?
So I do 50 tanks a day. So I know this trash can's a little out of place, but we have an army of trash cans. I only got so many places to keep them that are up and out of the way. But I'll mix my water the night beforehand, and then the next day I'll drain all the water.
What do you mean mix it?
So I have the pumps, and then I'll put the RO water into the trash can. I'll turn the pump on, and then I'll add the right general hardness minerals to get the TDS up to 150 to 160. Let it sit overnight, running it overnight, and then it's good to go the next day for the water changes because it's already room temperature. Nothing's on heaters.
How many's on here?
36.
So you would do this
So
one
I'll
day.
do this, and I'll try to tackle the whole kitchen or the hallway in one day. I'll do
Okay.
Jaden's room all in one day. The big 100-gallon rack, I'll do the top half one day, and then the bottom half the next day.
So do you have it sectioned off to work do them all in 7 days?
So I get them all done in 10 days.
Oh, 10. Damn.
50 tanks a day.
Oh yeah, 500.
Yeah.
Wow.
So my goal is every 2 weeks, Mondays and Saturdays are shipping. So the rest of the days I'm doing my water changes. But like I said, if I don't get to them until 3 weeks, they're not really going to be compromised at all. I just find that this moss grows way faster with zero algae the more water changes I do.
It looks
the
really
shrimp
good.
grow faster, the baby survival rate went up. I didn't think that I could actually do this professionally and make a full-time job out of this until I started doing massive water changes.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought I could do it selling shrimp, but I thought I was going to have to buy and resell. And I didn't want to be a middleman. I wanted to be farm-to-table breeder and actually be able to produce my
This is
own
probably
shrimp.
some of the best moss I've seen.
That's the weeping moss.
Yeah.
It's one of our top sellers.
Oh, look how healthy and like thick the fronds are. Just crazy. Now, how long does it take you to do 50 tanks water changes?
So I'll pretty much drain all the tanks, scrape the glass, any algae or filters that need to be cleaned, I'll tackle that while I'm scraping the glass. Then I'll go behind it and drain it. And usually for 50 tanks, that takes me about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And then I'm filling up the tanks pretty much all day. But it's not like I'm just sitting there having to do something. I'm on my phone, I'm talking to customers, I'm editing videos and stuff like that. It's very easy, laid back work. And I'm not gonna complain about it because before this, I did landscaping where I had to cut 20 to 60 houses a day. And just to scrape the front of the glass and trim some plants, that's way easier than even getting a weed whacker started, right?
Yeah.
So
So the fact
Living the
that
dream.
the fact that you do this full time is probably a dream job, obviously.
yeah, it is.
However, you couldn't not do this full time. It's just too much. You have to do this full time.
Yeah, if it wasn't a full-time job, I wouldn't have this many tanks.
Yeah.
Back when I did landscaping, I had 150 tanks, and I honestly thought there was no way I possibly could do any more. But then instead of doing like this tank at 120 TDS and this tank at 160, I said the whole house is going to be 150.
Yeah.
And then my life became way easier, and I was like, you know, I could do twice as many tanks.
Yeah.
And we started to grow. And then as you grow with experience, you just pick up certain things and you're able to do more and more tanks.
Yeah, just incredible. So here's a crazy question. We know how many tanks you have. If you had to estimate how many shrimp you have, what would you put that number at?
With the ponds outside,
Everything.
I would say probably 100,000 shrimp.
Woo! And the ponds outside, everything is kind of the same out there as well, or is it different because they're a different species?
So outside I don't have to have RO water. I can just use tap water. I can use a little bit of dechlorinator to take out the chlorine or chloramines. And besides that, I feed them every other day. They get the same amount of water changed. They have a bigger volume of water, of course, being in the IBC totes. They're capable of holding 275 gallons of water. I have them filled up to about the 170, 180 gallon mark.
Yeah.
That's because my pump doesn't have the depth capacity to power all of these pumps. So I still have them all up and running. I don't really need that much volume of water.
Your air pumps can't pump
couldn't
that
go that
down.
deep.
Oh,
so
okay.
What's important for shrimp though is having the water volume, but also having the floor surface area, because that's where they're going to be grazing and hanging out. So I just do 50% drain on them, and then I actually have added my little water change system, so I can come in here and each one of them I can fill up individually.
Oh, this is a much easier system to take care of.
Yes. So outside, it used to take me 3 days to get all of these done and water changed. Now I can do it in half a day. I can take care of something else inside and still crack out all of this. But again, we have the closed loop air system goes all the way around our entire back of the house.
Oh, it does.
And then in the tiki bar, I have the blower. So it's a little bit louder. It's a 1/3 horsepower blower.
I can hear it, yeah.
So I keep it outside. I put it in the tiki bar so my neighbors can't hear it behind it.
It's not that bad.
But the sponge filters are also bigger.
Have you ever had complaints?
No.
About anything like this?
No. My neighbor is a vet tech. So literally when I was a kid and I'd be walking to go into the woods or something like that, I'd see her whole reptile room, coral snakes, leopard geckos, Chinese water dragons. She did everything from squirrels to guinea pigs and stuff like that on rehabilitation. So I pretty much grew up next to the ideal person to be able to set everything up. And I know if there's ever a problem, I can run next door to Kim and say, hey, is this an emergency? Do I need to go to a professional or something?
When you're draining
like that?
these, can't you just drain them out onto the ground?
I haven't exactly figured out a system to where when I drain it, I don't lose all the shrimp, because it's so much pressure coming out of that one hole because it's so much volume water.
So for now,
So I've thought about doing like a large gravel bed.
What if, instead of it coming out of the hole, you attached a piece of PVC pipe with a cap on the end of it, drilling holes all through it and put a sieve over it, like a net, fine net over it, but the pipe goes all the way to the back, which relieves the pressure, and now it's just going
It's getting
through.
it sealed, getting a perfect, complete seal.
Yeah, it's probably just too risky.
Yeah.
And then you get shrimplets. And
But it's something I want to figure out this next year, because if we could expand and go
could they get through this, like a normal screen? The shrimplets
it
could.
probably just wouldn't last,
Yeah.
and it get clogged up, and it's such an issue with baby shrimp. So
these ones have fill valves.
Yep.
But these you got to basically do
I haven't
manually?
done this side yet. I'm gonna go all the way down and around because the baby this year, I just added these.
Oh.
And these are way easier for Shelby to work in. She catches all the shrimp outside for all of the orders and everything like that. So these barrels were...
Shelby's your wife, for anybody that's wondering who he's talking about.
My better half.
Yeah.
So all of these barrels were scattered throughout here with IBC totes. So I actually have more gallons of water and larger tubs to breed out more shrimp in here now than I did a year ago. So I just haven't gotten around to completely filling out the automated
Do these lights come
filling
on?
system. Yeah, they
Oh,
work
that's
at
cool.
nighttime.
So you could be out here at night if you needed to be.
Yeah, we generally catch shrimp at nighttime before we do the shows. If we travel to Chicago or something like that, if we're traveling on a Wednesday or a Thursday, the night before, we're still catching shrimp.
Interesting.
I don't think I showed you how big the sponge filters are, though. So
Yeah, those are big.
I do have these. They're rated for 250 gallons, so I do have the sponge capacity to fill up the tubs. If my pump ever goes out, I'll upgrade so I can fill these tubs up. But honestly, with the shrimp, it's just not needed. And
For the record, Grant has normal sized hands. Those are really big sponge filters.
And yeah, the demand for shrimp in the United States has never been higher. I think you're absolutely right with this next year, shrimp becoming even more and more popular. I think Zuckerberg kind of ruined it a little bit with making sales against the rules, but I think things are coming around now. There's more social media platforms out there. The shrimp hobby is getting out there, mainly because the nano hobby is exploding. And what's better to keep in a small little tank than
The shrimp. You can have them in your office. You can do them with no filter. You can have a filter.
I've got a friend who has them in a prison.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
a cook, and he's got a tank in.
One of my favorite tanks of all time was I had a 10-gallon aquarium. I put a handful of Java moss in it with a simple like desk light on it, and maybe 6 or 7 cherry shrimp. And within, I think it was like 3 or 6 months, the moss filled the entire tank, and I had hundreds of shrimp.
In just 6 months with doing the water changes that I do, a golf ball portion of moss, most of the mosses, you know, there's the hooker moss and the boost moss grows really slow, right?
I gotta get me some hooker moss.
But the weeping, the Christmas spiky, a golf ball portion of that will fill up an entire 10-gallon tank in 6 months.
Damn. With doing water changes with the type of water that you're using.
Oh no, in the Neocaridina tanks, the large water changes do this exact same thing.
Does it need to be RO water?
No, I'm doing it in tap water. In the ponds, I had those floating baskets with all my moss in it, just so it's easier to harvest.
Oh.
It's cold, so I don't want to dig my elbows down.
And you're just using natural sunlight for them?
Yep.
Okay. Anyways, Grant, thanks for having us and taking a look at all the tanks and finding out exactly how this worked. I think a lot of people in the watching have learned a lot. If they want to learn more, you obviously have your own YouTube channel. And if you want to buy some shrimp or plants, you have a website as well. What was that called again?
So the site is tgoeshrimp.com, and you can find our socials at the Garden of Eder.
Perfect. I'm going to leave links to everything we just said in the description below if you want to check any of it out. If you did enjoy this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're not already, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
What they say, hear it all when they talk about me. What they say, I don't care now, I'ma do